what could be some good tips for people to actually stay on course and stay on track in the language learning journey? Because you kind of get on it, then you fall off, you get on it back again, you fall off.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know about your experience as a language learner, but sometimes it gets a little bit chaotic and hectic. So
Yeah.
what could be some tips to actually stay on the path and keep on getting better at the language of your choice? uh, it's hard, but probably there could be some good advice there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting question, and my students, they usually also ask me this question. And I think when you start to learn language, you have to understand what language you're dealing with. And some people who come to me to learn Russian, they just they think that, oh, I will do it casually, one or two lessons every two weeks. But unfortunately, with the language like Russian, you cannot do that. And I'm talking about people just starting on Russian, because in the beginning you have to really be like, like maybe not 100%, but most of the time you have to think about the language. I
Mhm.
think this is the love for language is the most important, because, for example, when I was learning English, I never took any courses other than what they taught us at school. Then I got to college, but it wasn't really different from school, so it was the same, even though the title says like English translator. Uh, I think it's more about that person feels like he wants to speak the language. Let it be just reading some like description of the movie. I would pretend that I'm the like dictator on the TV, and I would just tell people about the movie that I have like a description of, uh, and probably also mm, being like, just go with the flow, maybe not being too serious about the language. It's just the language. So do mistakes, make mistakes. Don't think about that people will think that you are not bright enough, because that happens when we speak other languages. uh, Consistency, of course, is the key, but keep it to the point that you can like do. For example, now I don't have time to learn a language, like being focused on the language uh,
Mhm.
as I used to be when I was at school. Now I'm just doing Duolingo. It's my minimum. So I do one Duolingo lesson a day when I don't feel like learning anything. I just do it. So I keep my streaks. Yeah, I think that would be it. Just love the language.
Well, actually, it's a funny story because one of my Japanese friends, he was
Mhm.
also a guest on the podcast. We have texted not that long ago, and he said like, "I have become such an addict of Duolingo. It's horrible." He got so competitive and so eager, like it has become an addiction for him. He
Yeah.
to such a point that we both of us were writing on one platform called Medium, and
Mhm.
I just saw that he's not posting that much nowadays, not so many
Ah,
articles coming. And I just texted with him, like, what's up? And he's like, I can't get off it. So it seems like it has been gamified in such a way
mm,
that you actually sometimes are able to get hooked on it, maybe even too much.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
But what about other platforms? Like, I also used Link.
Mhm.
I'm not sponsored by Link in any kind of way, but I use it for my reading and listening comprehension. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you have ever used it before, but that's one of my go-to applications
Mhm.
to, let's say, read a text or listen to a podcast, or maybe find a podcast that I like and check if it's on link, and I can
Mhm.
read and translate the words at the same time without like buying a transcription or anything
Mhm.
like that. So besides Duolingo, do you use any other kind of material?
Um, Yeah, I do. Sometimes I also use link, and actually I use all kinds of materials. Even y- I can just type something in Spanish and just read it, or I open
Hmm.
YouTube and I open some interviews of Spanish speaking actors, and I just listen.
Hmm.
For some people, it can be so frustrating to listen to something you don't understand, but it's just uh, I don't know. You just have to be in the like you have to immerse yourself. Otherwise,
Hmm.
you're just learning what they give to you in the textbooks, or only what
Hmm.
the teacher thinks you can acquire. But it's so good when you hear something, you it's stuck in your mind, you don't know the meaning, but one day you find out the meaning of the word, and you know it already. Actually, you
Yeah.
remember it, and now you can use it. So I think it's also very good. Yeah.
Well, for me, there's another problem. Like some people might not know, we talked about our because Malika is actually my Russian teacher as well. Like that's how we met. We met on Italki, and I have been learning Russian with her and some other people for quite some time. But after moving away to live in Portugal, I for half a year I put it aside and I focused solely on Portuguese. And now I'm learning both languages together, but during this time I forgot many Russian words, and it kind of moved from my active vocabulary to my passive
Mm-hmm.
vocabulary, and some words from my passive vocabulary just disappeared. Like I had to relearn them because the
Mm-hmm.
neural connections were not as strong,
Mm-hmm.
apparently. From this I have a question, like, would you recommend people to learn two languages at once, or would you recommend stick to one, don't mess around, go one by one at a time?
Mm-hmm. So it depends on the levels of the languages that you already on. For example, I wouldn't recommend learn two similar languages. You being on the similar level on both of them. For example, if you want to learn Japanese, I wouldn't recommend you to learn Korean right now,
Hmm.
because
Right.
first you have to get understanding of one language and get to the level you will not confuse them, these two languages. But I think it could work for two different languages, like maybe English and Japanese.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that. But still, uh, we have to understand that we would use like one source, the brain, that it still will split the sources into two languages to acquire them. So it's better to stick with one language at a time. But if you don't aspire to get fluent in any of them, just you want to have fun and to like get the understanding of them, yeah, it's okay. You can learn 10 languages at the same time.
So probably it separates like a casual learner from a very dedicated one,
Yeah.
where you just go like full in. Because I still dream that I'll be able to learn both Russian and Portuguese on the same level. But as you have said, like you only have 24 hours and you have to dedicate your time and resources. Like I try to learn one language one day, another language another day,
Hmm.
and but still, it's sometimes it kind of your brain breaks the pattern because you get into
Hmm.
the rhythm of one language, and even if it's another day you have to change the rhythm again.
Hmm.
And maybe I'm having lessons in other languages. I teach English and Lithuanian, so I have to switch them once again.
Hmm.
And your brain just prunes something out, even though you try to tell it it's important, you should keep it. Sometimes it doesn't care. It's just like this is too much information, I'll put it on the side.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But probably if you're actually still like very very on top of it, if you're very focused, I believe that there must be a way how to actually learn two languages and like keep getting better, although I believe it will come with more frustration.
Hmm.
So it will take more time also, I believe, and you also have to be very diligent with your own time. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe plan your schedule and actually stick with it. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you miss a lesson, well, you missed like maybe 1/3 of your this week's lessons and 1/3 of the
Mm-hmm.
time as well.
Yeah.
So at least like from my point of view, it seems to be like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always advise my students just to do the minimum that they can this
Yeah.
particular day. So that would be, I think, the best solution.
So what could be this minimum? Like, what's the most optimal minimum to do?
um, of course, doing just like Duolingo is not enough. It's just the tiniest part of what you could do, but it's better than nothing. When I feel good, I would do probably a text, maybe like
Hmm.
a text of 3 paragraphs is enough, I think. uh, of course, it depends on the level you have in the language, but it should be something, that they say you have to do things that are slightly above your skills, to
Hmm.
be still engaged and interested in what you're doing, but it should be not that difficult that you lose your like patience and
You get bored because it's too hard.
yeah, yeah, it's too hard, you're frustrated, so yeah, you have to keep it on the level, but as a self learner, you never know uh, what to choose. So I think maybe having a textbook with text is a good practice,
Hmm.
because they put it like according to levels, and they usually uh, use the same words, and they add some new. I think this is the
Hmm.
best for a language learner, rather than finding some different things on the internet. Having one textbook is a good idea, but still, maybe also one great tip is to have someone to talk to in your head while you're doing stuff. Let
Yes.
it be like maybe a star or an interviewer or just a friend who you know. I think it's a good way to learn the language.
To try to make dialogues in your minds.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. To explain something, to maybe to tell about what you have read today.
Hmm. One of my friends, an Italian speaker, his name is Antonello. He recommended me and other language learners his method that he used to learn English and Spanish,
Hmm.
and also he's using to learn French, which is basically, simply put, just writing. So he,
Hmm.
on the day one, he just prints out 1,000 words, like the most
Hmm.
common words. He puts them into his Anki and he starts learning vocabulary, and he immediately starts to write. So his goal is to write at least 100 words a day.
Hmm.
And maybe in the beginning he's using the translator, but later on he just starts to improvise, and he tries to find a native speaker who would be willing to check his writing to see
Hmm.
whether he has done mistakes, how many mistakes, how can he rectify it, because he
Hmm.
graduated with a, it was, his level was A2. They give him
Hmm.
B1, but he said like, I wasn't B1, I was A2 at best. But with this practice, he kind of developed fluency quite rapidly. And
Hmm.
now he has a tech company where he focuses on technical writing in English. So he later actually made it into a business, combining his knowledge with computers and programming and writing. So his approach was very written based, so to say.
Hmm.
So so I believe we can actually learn and take like bits and pieces of advice from many people.
Hmm.
What's the problem is the discipline
Yeah.
that you impose on yourself, because at the same time, many people, beginner language learners maybe, or that learn a language because they need it instead of
Hmm.
that they want it, experience a problem that they cannot actually discipline themselves to learn, and they expect that they will join once or twice a week to a language
Mhm.
lesson with a teacher, and magically they will become fluent in a year, which is never the
Mhm.
case. so like you have to actually want it, and you have to actually discipline yourself. And like how do you discipline yourself when you are really serious about language learning? Is it
Mhm.
a goal that you put in front of you, or is it more sporadic? Like what's your approach?
Uh, I think I'm the worst uh, in that sense because I only do what I like when I like, and
Okay.
uh, maybe when I have a goal, like I had a goal to go to Korea. For that, I had to take a test, like a proficiency test,
Mhm.
and what I was doing is I was every day for 3 months I was going to a library and I would study using textbooks
Mm.
that are that were made written especially for these purposes
Mhm.
uh, to pass this exam. And I think these textbooks helped me, and doing the tests, like trying yourself to pass the test using some samples on the internet is a good thing. But if I don't have that goal, uh, I would just do what I want. And maybe it's not for everyone, but I like watching series dramas, and
Mhm.
this is what I usually do. And as I told you, I like to like mimic uh, people when they speak the language, and this is what I would do when I'm watching Korean dramas.